Hey guys, Kev here. Welcome back to the channel. Today we're going to be talking about Dragon Age the Veilguard and just EA and a brain dead take by EA. I was hoping after taking a little bit of a break from creation, just been busy with life, that I wouldn't have that I wasn't going to come back to something negative about this. I was working on a video about Oblivion, still working on it. But let's talk about what EA actually thinks about RPG fans. And this is an interview done by Games Radar. They interviewed David Gator, one of the creators of BioWare, and he explains why he left BioWare about a decade ago. And what he said is that, he had become somewhat old-fashioned in EA's eyes, and he was very vocal on the Dragon Age team, saying he was always trying to push their more traditional mechanics, and that wasn't very welcome in the EA sphere. And I think this is very much so how we went from Dragon Age Origins being arguably one of the greatest RPGs ever made to the games just subsequently becoming worse and worse over time, and probably even why we had to wait 10 years just to get the Veilguard, just for them to kind of destroy the universe. Well, let's talk about it. He says EA considers some of the mechanics, the kind that shaped games like Dragon Age Origins, to be slow and cumbersome, rather than the actiony and slick presentation that the studio was being pushed toward in Gator's views. They weren't very welcome despite his long tenure at the studio and on many of its most famous RPGs. And that's partly because EA didn't think the traditional RPG audience was the one that they should be focusing on at BioWare. He claims that the overseers referred to those mechanics as being in the cave. The cave, he explains, was where the nerds went. The nerds were in the cave. You made an RPG, and the nerds in the cave would always show up for an RPG because it was an RPG. And that devotion to their chosen genre in EA's eyes meant that you didn't have to worry about the nerds. You didn't have to try to appeal to them. You had to worry about the people who weren't in the cave, which was the audience we actually wanted, which was much larger. Man, that quote right there. So effectively what EA is saying, we bought BioWare and we were planning on using them for mass appeal. And we didn't need to worry about appealing to RPG fans because RPG fans were just going to play whatever RPG slop you threw at them. How nice. That's how EA thinks about them. And you saw this actually almost immediately after the change over to EA, where they were dumbing down mechanics. Like I've said many times, the original Mass Effect trilogy, Mass Effect 2, in my opinion, is the worst of the three because they watered down so many of the mechanics. People are mad about the ending, mad about the story elements, which, whatever, I loved Mass Effect 3. People were mad about the inclusion of multiplayer. I loved Mass Effect 3 multiplayer. I still play it from time to time. But what I was actually upset about is how they dumbed down the skill trees and the available abilities that you could have in Mass Effect 2 and 3. It basically became very much so light and dark, and I guess it was supposed to be that way anyway. Paragon versus Renegade, light side versus dark side. It was inspired by Star Wars after all. But yeah, they didn't. EA, that was about the only RPG kind of choice you were going to get. They were very minimal A or B choices, very much so light or dark side. And they really focused on the action you saw with Dragon Age 2, which people hated after, how Dragon Age Origins played. And then they doubled down even more with Inquisition. And then, of course, we had to wait a decade to get Dragon Age the Veilguard probably because people kept screaming, give us more Origins. And it's probably also why we haven't seen a remaster or a remake or anything of that nature for Dragon Age Origins, even though that is the game the community really has been asking for years. And then let's look at Mass Effect. And if you look at like how Mass Effect 1 handles the combat and everything, the overheating of the weapons, let's get rid of that. Let's make it more like Call of Duty. We're going to have you load clips, and we're going to make it be more like a cinematic action movie adventure. And that's what they did for Mass Effect 2 and 3. And then we have Anthem. I'm not sure why they thought BioWare was what they were going to do with a Destiny clone. And I say this as somebody who liked the combat in Anthem. I actually tried Anthem. The combat I thought was great. It was just everything else that was bad. Andromeda, again, some of the best combat in the Mass Effect series. Just everything else was kind of crap. Dragon Age Inquisition, I liked it in the beginning, but going back and playing it again, this is slop. And I didn't even bother buying Veilguard. And it goes to show that, the customers, I'm not going to say the customer's always right, because they're not. But if you have a brand, you should probably stay on brand and stick with that brand for your customer base. There is no reason for BioWare to go out trying to chase the GTA audience, trying to chase the Ubisoft audience. And that's why Dragon Age is such a shit show now, because they were trying to get, they didn't know what they wanted Dragon Age to be. They tried to make it into like more of an action game like Mass Effect and Dragon Age 2. Then they came with Inquisition, and they said it back in the day. They were just trying to be like Skyrim because they didn't have confidence in their own original formula. And then with Veilguard, they were trying to be like God of War 2018. And they added a lot of Mass Effect stuff into it. It's probably also why they changed up the game combat mechanics as well. And it's crazy to see that you spent that much money on a studio, that a world-renowned studio that is known for making all-time great RPGs like Baldur's Gate and Knights of the Old Republic and Neverwinter Nights, and you decided to, instead of buying them and using them for what they're known for and what they're good at, where they already had an audience, decided, hey, we had them already and they were going to keep showing up, and we wouldn't just go find something else, like you didn't have competition. That doesn't make sense to me, and sadly that's how the games industry works for a lot of things. Yes, I could see that if you had Madden. Like Madden, the Madden fans are going to come up, the 2K fans are going to come up, the FIFA fans are going to come up, okay, whatever. GTA fans are going to pull up, even if you have a competitor, you got them, I get that. And I understand why maybe that point of view might be felt that way. But there are so many RPGs out there, and let's be real, the indie RPGs right now are destroying AAA RPGs for the most part. It really goes to show that, EA is so out of touch, and they're still doing this when they give you slop like Dragon Age the Veilguard. And only the BioWare stands are the ones that bought it. I still haven't bought it, and I have no real intention on doing so. I'm not even pirating it. I am just so not interested in that game when there are hundreds, if not thousands, of better RPGs available. What do you guys think about this article? What do you, especially if you're a BioWare fan, what do you think about EA's thoughts on this? Are you not even surprised that EA would say this? Because I'm really not. Let me know in the comments below. Of course, if you're new to the channel, I'd love to have you subscribe. I'll talk to you guys next time. Thanks for watching.